So you've got the rig, you've got the gear. So where are you gonna go? In this video, we're gonna talk about finding places to go overlanding. We're gonna cover everything from the old school to the new school and everything in between. And there's no better place to start than these gazetteers. These were originally produced by DeLorme, and now Garmin makes these, organized by state. I keep 4, the states I'm normally venturing in the truck at all times. It can be a little intimidating because there's a lot of information, but you can get familiar with these pretty quickly and they become a great tool. It never runs out of batteries and it's never lacking service. Inside the first page, you've got all of these quadrants that have numbers. That tells you what page you're going to be on. It can be really handy for a lot of reasons, like you can just glance down and flip to it. For example, we are right outside of Roanoke, so we know we need to go to page 43. If you need something a little more specific that may not be on those, you've got multiple pages of index here that have literally every place with the name on the map listed. So let's go over to 43 and point out another feature that's really cool about these. So here we are, we're right outside of Bedford, Virginia, but most of the mountains where we're gonna get off-road and check out some trails or national forest roads are up here, right off the page. No need to worry. You don't have to reference back to that front page. It tells you right here it's continued on page 53. So these have a lot of information on them. Everything from road numbers, road names, mountain names, topographic lines, even boundaries for like the national forests, cities, things like that. This individual section has got the Appalachian Trail, but it's better to have that than not. You can really kind of draw a lot of information out about this. For example, this one, even in the national forest, has a little indicator for trout streams. So when you're looking at these maps, and if you're looking for some adventurous routes, you want to chase down some of these skinnier tracks. You know, something like this, which is actually the Blue Ridge Parkway and the thicker red, some of the major highways going into the towns. You want to go more towards something like this. Unfortunately, you can't always tell exactly what these are or if they're open. For example, here at Peaks of Otter, we have a road called Sheep Creek that comes down this west side. It looks like it's actually pretty comparable to a lot of these county roads. However, it turns into some really steep switchbacks and often washes out once you get up here. Kind of on the flip side of that, this road next to Falling Water Cascade, the hiking trail, looks like it connects back into the Blue Ridge Parkway, but there's actually a gate here because of a radar installation, so it's rarely open to vehicle traffic. There are some other tools that can give you that information, and we'll get into those later. So, of course, these have limitations. They never run out of batteries and you're never without service, but when you open this up, it can be kind of hard to tell what you're getting into. That's part of the fun of it though, you know, that sense of exploration and discovery and knowing once you get there. Sometimes you might think that you're looking at like a pretty decent highway and it's a terrible road. On the other hand, sometimes it looks like a great adventurous track through the woods and it's a paved 2-lane with stripes. So just be aware of the limitations of these, but also how good of a resource they are. And really, they take up no room and pack a lot of information into a small package. While these do have a lot of information, boat ramps, for example, here on this page, they're not going to give you every single national forest road, every single off-road trail. That's where some of these smaller, more specific maps come into play. So we've got these other types of paper maps that we really like here in the Brog shop. You've got Purple Lizard and Latitude 40. These are kind of region specific, but they have lots of information about trails, trail systems, places to camp, things like that. They're also weatherproof, which is really handy. We also really like these backcountry discovery routes. They are usually a pretty long route that connects a lot of different areas, roads, etc. It's maybe geared a little more towards moto, but they're still doable in a 4x4 and they're super handy and they cover some really beautiful places. All 3 of these are gonna have more of the off-roader in mind than your average like tourist map, you know, that you can pick up at the rest area or whatever. So the backcountry discovery route maps have a really cool feature. You can see it's got like the whole route in each section here that's numbered. Then you flip over to the back and you get a more detailed version of that. Everything from the GPS track that coordinates with it, obviously they're numbered, the scale, major things that you want to visit, like here is the ranger office and some other options. These are really organized with the off-roader in mind and they're a great resource and they just keep expanding the routes so you never know when they're going to add like maybe your favorite area or a new area you want to explore. Okay, let's take a look at these Purple Lizard maps. We talked about earlier how some of these are more regional and they focus on the Northeast, not necessarily exclusively, but more so than others. Their key is really geared towards off-roaders with paved routes, dirt and gravel, easy trails, moderate trails, and high clearance 4-wheel drive all included. Also, you'll note that they have these numbered yellow sections that are part of the major route and are usually really good resources. Things like rental services, park offices, and stuff like that. All right, now let's take a look at these Latitude 40 maps. This brand is usually geared more towards out west, Arizona, Utah. This specific one is a portion of Colorado. A really cool feature are these summaries of trails that correspond with a number up here on the main map. It gives you a little bit of a summary, tells you what to expect, and it also has like permit offices and other resources like that marked on the map. One of my favorite mobile apps for finding places to go overlanding is onX Off-Road. It allows you to track trips, record your own routes, things like that, and has some really cool features. They continue to improve it, but the neatest has been there from the beginning. Discover mode will tell us what is nearby, and we're just here on this back road in Virginia. It gives us the technical rating and the length of these. When we see one we like, Parker's Gap, for example, it pulls up even more information, including the high and low point, what it's accessible by, and an overview from one of their trail guides. Most of these even include some photos to give you an idea of what you're getting into. At the bottom, you can even navigate to this trail using Apple Maps or Google Maps. Another cool feature of onX Off-Road is you can record your own tracks, send those to friends, or use them for your own reference later on. All you have to do is hit Go and Track and record. While you're on the road, it gives you your direction, your distance, and your elapsed time, along with a few other stats. If you spend any time in the National Forest, you know road closures can be a big challenge. Another great feature in onX is their color-coded system. You can drop your own waypoints in, of course, and your own tracks pop up, but orange routes are closed, green routes are open, and green routes with a blue highlight are those featured trails that have more information because they've been scouted by one of the onX trail guides. You can tap on any of these green routes, like Swapping Camp Road here, and it's going to tell you the weather, coordinates, the road ID, what it's suitable for, and this one, for example, is open year-round, but if it did have closure dates, they would be listed. If you're going to use a mobile app for navigation, you want to make sure you have offline maps available. onX has a great way of doing that. You can download those at multiple levels of detail, and when you hit offline maps, it shows you all of the maps that you've got stored. You can see that this small square right here around the shop is in a higher detail, and then I have pieced together pretty much most of our local trail system. Okay, so for our last portion of where to go overlanding, we're going to talk about the Garmin Overlander. This is a really cool device. They've got a couple different versions now, but we're working with the original today. Right out of the bat, one of my favorite features of this is the fact it has a fantastic magnetic mount. So, you know, you're like showing your passenger different screen orientations, then you're ready to get on the move, boom, you can almost throw it up there. So it offers all the features a regular GPS does. You can search for the nearest rest area, gas station, things like that. But it has a lot of overlanding things built into it as well. Everything from recording a track to downloading different collections, different maps, and even different apps. It even includes a pitch and roll for your vehicle. So we're going to take a look at the Explore mode, which allows you to see a topographic map and to mess with your layers. We've got OpenStreetMap USA on here as well at the moment. You can download and manage these just from the device. And I really like that the Overlander allows you to take the orientation of the map into your own hands. It has bird's eye view, north up, 3D, and a couple more view modes. So if you're kind of particular about that, there's going to be something that works for you. It also is great for doing your own tracks. Once you're out on the trail, you can hit record, take that back, save it for later, mark waypoints from the device for future reference, and all of that good stuff. This thing has a lot of different layers. So we've got a topographic map lined up here, and the Blue Ridge Parkway is this yellow line. All of these forest roads that are either gray dotted or maybe some of the secondary roads that are solid gray would be good options to find places to go overlanding. So let's say you're out on the trail, find a sweet spot for a campground, or even, you know, like a water source, review, whatever you're looking for. You can add a waypoint right from the machine. It also has some really cool integration with some of the other Garmin products. We've talked about places to go overlanding, but like what happens when you go wrong? So you can map this with your inReach and connect it with a couple of different devices here. So you're out on the trail and you need help, you can use those straight from the Overlander. It's also really well ruggedized. It's armored, it's bounced around off the dash on several different trucks. The screen is none the worse for wear. And with the strength of this mount, we've never had any problems with it falling off. Okay, so you may be thinking like, how do I use this in the woods? You can download tracks that you make on the Garmin apps and choose these out of your files. Within just a few seconds, calculating the best route to that. This one's taking us to a spot, a trail up in West Virginia, and it's going to tell us how to get there. So we've all been there. You get up on the last day of the trip, you're ready to fuel up, maybe grab some snacks, head home. Sometimes finding the way back to town isn't always easy, but the Garmin Overlander has a cool feature called Track Back. You bring up this screen and it shows you cities, towns, etc. Hit go and it chooses the closest one, which in our case is Bedford, and gives you the quickest route back to there, where you're going to find food, supplies, gas, all that good stuff. All right, so in review, we've talked about good old-fashioned paper maps. The batteries never go dead. We've talked about Onyx Off-Road, a great mobile app you can have on your phone at all times. We've talked about the dedicated unit, like a Garmin Overlander. And now the last thing that we want to talk about for places to go overlanding is the overlanding community itself. You can stop in at an outfitter, check out local Facebook groups. There's one for almost every state, sometimes even more regional than that, and just ask for cool spots. Remember that sometimes people may not be willing to give up their top secret campsite, but if you're engaging, you're kind and friendly, and not asking for it in a necessarily public forum, you can usually get some help. So be willing to put in the legwork there, the same way that sometimes you just need to get out on the trail and explore. So we hope you found this video helpful, and we hope you find some great spots to camp and some great trails to explore. Thanks for watching. We need you to throw the maps up in the air like Scrooge McDuck. Well, Dookie. Let's look where to go overlanding versus
how to not get arrested.
Well, yeah. If you really want to have an adventure, take your expensive overlanding rig to Washington, D.C. It's a great way for your rig to lose weight, including wheels, accessories that aren't locked down.